Thanks, Stephen. Can everybody hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now? I got a very boisterous throat. So, with my Italian background, as you can tell, and Steve did a great job pronouncing my name, my hands have to move and I have to move in order to really speak. So, if everyone's okay and you can accommodate me on that, I'll probably walk around a bit if you can hear me, as long as I can keep up this pitch. So, once again, thank you very much for giving me the honor to come and speak to you about something I'm extremely passionate about, and that is housing market and real estate. I've been involved in this industry for over 30 years. In the early years, in the mid-'80s, while I was at university, I was doing residential appraisals for an owner-operator in Hamilton and learned quite a bit, and that's what really started the seeds of interest in real estate. When I look back at those times in university, I think back that something that's stuck in my mind is my third year statistics course. My prof came in on the very first day, and he put up a quote and he says, "This is the first lesson we all have to learn." And it was a similar quote to this: "Some people use statistics as a drunk man uses a lamppost, mostly for support rather than illumination." I'm going to try to be as illuminating as possible, but given 30 plus years in development and real estate, I will probably layer on my own experience onto some of the statistics and some of the figures and data I'm going to present today to give you my tempered approach of how I see what this data is telling us in our current state. So now I'm going to lean on my economics background, and if I'm going to talk about housing market, I've got to start with supply and demand. So let me break this down as easily as possible. Let's start off with demand. With demand, I want to focus on, and I'm going to start walking around here, so I apologize. With demand, I'm going to focus on basically two facets: demographics and economics. The demographics, I'm going to try to look at the population, the groups in that population, and what their preferences look like. And on the economics, I'm going to talk about twofold. First of all, I'm going to look at regionally, the economic vitality of Waterloo region, but I'm also going to look at the economics as it comes down to a homeowner or a potential homeowner, about their affordability. So let's start off with demographics. I'm a baby boomer, and there's various letters of the alphabet depending on how old you are. So let's start off with some of the millennials. I looked at this study, and it was a study that was brought together by Altus Group, CMHC, the Canadian Home Builders Association, Ryerson University, all came together and they did a study. Now this is a bit busy, so three things that really jumped out at me. The first, millennials are seeking family-oriented housing, and there's a scarcity. That's what came out of this study. Second, given this undersupply and scarcity, we're also looking at a bit of a baby boomlet, 20% increase over the last decade, but also married couples, 25 to 34. That's up over 200,000 in the last 5 years. Now that 25 to 34, it's a pretty interesting demographic because I look at that as the couples that are in the family formative years. And maybe that's about the best way I can put it. So they're probably looking for a certain type of housing to accommodate themselves. And this is one piece that I found very interesting, and that is 95% of buyers are looking for ground-oriented housing. When I talk about ground-oriented housing, I'm speaking about housing, semi-detached, detached homes, row, townhouse, and even that type of product that's 2, 3, 4 stories, very low. Anything above that is broken up into apartments and condos and mid-rise and high-rise. So we've got 95% of buyers looking for ground-related housing, and when you look at the output on the right-hand side of what's being built, it's almost 50-50. Now, are there some factors in there, and I know that's supply, and that's later on in my discussion, so I'll try to talk about that and come back to that, of why that is. When I want to look at population and demographics, when I look at the population, we're looking at Ontario. Ontario's got about 150,000 people of net migration coming to this province, almost every year. When you look at the dark blue and the black, the dark blue is those people coming in, primarily immigrants, or people coming from other provinces. The drive to keep Canada's economy going has to come from immigration. So the doors on immigration cannot be closed. They have to be kept open, and they have to be kept thriving, because that's what's going to keep our economy going forward. When we talk about immigrants and immigration, there's three categories. Two of them I'm not really going to chat about too much. The one is family reunification. That's immigrants looking to come to Canada to be with family members that have already settled here. And the other one is asylum, or refugees. But the lion's share of the population of immigrants coming to Canada are what they call economic category. There are those immigrants who have substantial net worth, they have assets, they have substantial experience, education, skill sets, things that Canada needs to keep their economy moving forward. When I look at Waterloo Region, a large percentage of those individuals, the economic category of immigrants, they're making up the large percentage of immigrants. When I look at them, between 25 and 34, they're looking for family-oriented housing. A lot of them are families that are coming into that segment. So I just throw that out there for the demand side of things as well. We also have what we call non-permanent residents. In Waterloo Region, we have 10,000 non-permanent residents. And that's really basically to support the institutions like the universities, CG, Perimeter, etc., etc. We also have 60,000 post-secondary students within this great region of ours. All of these above need housing. Now, the type of housing that they're going to be looking for may be a little bit different than those millennials and some of the immigrant categories that are coming into the country. And you've probably seen some of that housing up along Columbia and down King Street that support that student population. So, but I'm going to talk about the student population a little bit later as well. So let me talk about the economic factors. First of all, what a great region we live in. GDP, really high. When we look at the participation rate in employment, it is above the provincial average. We've got the median employment income for Waterloo Region actually above that of Toronto's, just slightly above that of Toronto's. Our median employment income is slightly above that of Toronto, but it's definitely above that of Canada or Ontario-wide. So what that means is we've got a great location here, a great gem where people can come here and they can make a pretty good living. We've got diverse industry. We've got what they call FIRE, which is finance, insurance, real estate-based industries. We've got technology, as everyone's aware of. And we also have traditional and advanced manufacturing, which creates that fundamental base to attract people to Waterloo Region. So, I mean, that's what brought me here. That's what allowed me to establish my family. That's what I love about Waterloo and calling it home. So, the other great advantage we have as a region, if you look at the ratio of household income to average house price, I know that differential and ratio looks a little bit stark, but it's actually much better than that of Ontario. And when you compare it with Toronto here, you can see that people here are in much better shape. What I've seen personally within our company of home building, and this really demonstrate, over the last couple years, we've seen an influx of people coming in from the GTA and its surrounding areas, moving into Waterloo. And what they're doing is they're moving here from places like Brampton, Mississauga, buying homes here that are equivalent to the home they had in the GTA, and they're pocketing somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000 in their bank account on top of that. And also, from their perspective, because I chatted with them at our sales center, they don't care about driving 45 minutes. It's not a big deal for them. So, great proposition, but once again, Waterloo looks absolutely great as a region to attract people, and I think we're going to start seeing more and more of this. As long as we have continued investment in transportation, but that's another topic on itself. So, if you had $1 million under the old Bare Naked Lady songs, you could go into Toronto and you could buy this home. 1,600 square foot baby in an average neighborhood with a single car garage. Or you could take your million and you could come to Kitchener-Waterloo and you can buy a 2,800 square foot home on a really nice lot. Now, if you want to kick in about another $400,000 and you love sunshine and skiing, you can go to Vancouver and you can buy this gem for $1.3 million. So, you put all of that together, really what I'm trying to drive, we've got a great community here where people want to come and live, and we're going to continue to see that based on our housing supply and what we can offer as a region. I want to talk about this dreaded affordability. And when we look at affordability, we're talking about three elements when we want to discuss this. There's the job security and income potential, there's housing prices, and then there's regulations, which are the mortgage regulations in order to get financing for your home purchase. This is where we have jobs, we have a great economy, we can attract people. But now let's look at some other things. Let's look at millennials. Millennials over the last decade have seen their incomes increase by about $17,000. But they've seen the average home price increase by $170,000. I can tell you, as a father of two, it's very disconcerting about where my daughters are going to raise their families in the future. That's one thing that I'm focused on with our group at Activa, to try to hopefully solve that. But we can't do that on our own. We're going to need a lot of collaboration and support for that. So these millennials, which are seeking ground-based, family-oriented housing, are having some financial issues to deal with. And that's why you got the great increase in the Bank of Mom and Dad coming into play these days, right? Also, another reality is these millennials, when their grandparents bought their first home, it was 3 times the income of a single wage earner to buy that home. These millennials, when they go to buy their first home, it'll be 5 to 10 times the income generated by 2 wage earners. That's pretty scary, at least in my opinion. I'm going to talk about affordability later on when we get into my section on policy. I put this one up. I found this online. I'm going, what are we doing to help people out to buy homes? The region has a program that they'll provide 5% based you qualify on income, etc. They'll give you a 5% loan to help you buy a home. But the home cannot exceed $386,000. So I thought, my statistical background, let me take some time and look into this. So I went on to MLS and I did some searches, and currently at the time, this was last week, there was about 1,100 listings on MLS in total. The total universe, 1,100. So then I said, well, how many of them are under 386,000? I thought, wow, it's about 333, 28%. I go, well, that's pretty good. So I thought, let me do a little bit more digging, just my analytical mind. I got to keep digging and try to understand what these numbers are telling me. So I go a little bit further and I said, well, let me look at family-oriented housing. So what I did is I went into that 333 homes that are available. And I said, let me look at homes, semi-detached, detached. Let me look at towns. Let me look at any type of row housing. Actually, let me look at even high-rise product that has 2 bedrooms or more, because that's where a family needs to live. Let me look at that. And what I came up with was 17 homes. I said 17. Out of 1,100 possible listings, 17 homes fall into this category. I called the region, I asked them, I said, how many times have you used this program? They tell me, on average, about 30 a year. And I'm going, well, I could see why, probably. And I'm not saying everybody wants family-based housing. Some of them would probably are single individuals looking to get into their first home acquisition. So it's a great program. At least it's helped out 30 people get into home ownership of what they wanted. So I found that a very stark reality as well of where we are today. I even did the math and I looked a little bit further and I said, okay, how many homes are there under 500,000 that fall into this category of 500,000? And I got about 22% of the total universe falls under 500,000. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm beginning to sound like my dad. $500,000 and I can't find anything? What's going on here? Right? So this is the reality that our children and our grandchildren are going to face. The reality of affordability. And when I talk about affordability, I mean middle class, home ownership, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about supportive housing or affordable housing for a marginalized population. So demand, I'll give you a little bit of my summary of it from what I've taken from an illumination point of vantage. The demand side of the equation will continue to grow through immigration and demographical needs, primarily in family-oriented housing. That's where the demand is. There's a strong economy in Waterloo, and we will continue to see it be an attractive place for people to come that are looking for this dream of home ownership. And although the actual demand of any type of housing type may go up and down, as the population grows, which it is, it makes logical sense to me that housing has to grow as well. So as the population grows, so does housing. So that's a little bit about the demand side. So let's go to the big picture of supply. I want to talk about government policy. I want to speak a little bit about the process and about that very sexy word, infrastructure, which everybody loves to hear about. So let's start off with government policy and the impacts of government policy on supply. Right now we see a shifting. We see this low-rise, family-oriented housing, and then we see this high-rise product. I ask the question, is it a shifting of preferences, or is it public policy that's driving this? I'll give you my view of it a little bit later, of what is driving this. One thing that I find a bit difficult to swallow is this mantra from the government. Shaping communities, changing behaviors. To me it sounds like the province is trying to be my psychiatrist. I have an aversion towards psychiatry and I don't need my behavior changed. We have immigrants coming into this country who are seeking family-oriented housing. And if we want to continue to attract these people to this country to drive forward our economy, then we have to learn how to provide that product to them, to continue to entice them to come here. Because there's lots of other countries, and although we can complain about Donald Trump, they're trying to get into the US as well. So I really have a hard time with changing behavior. And as a second generation individual whose immigrant grandparents came here, they came here for a better dream. And I don't mean to pontificate. They came here to make a better life for themselves. And actually, my grandparents and my father told me they came here to have the dream of home ownership. And I feel that that dream is slowly being taken away and transitioned into something that somebody magical up in the air wants. I look at federal policy. We have the National Housing Strategy, which talks about investing about $40 billion into affordable housing, about $10 billion into renovations of that housing. And I hear affordable, and it always shakes me a bit when I hear the word affordable, because I don't think the true story of what the word affordable housing in this policy really means. If you read into the policy, what it means is providing affordable housing for the marginalized population within our community. That's what this means. I'm not saying there's something wrong with it. As a society, we need to address that. And I'm all for it. But that it's not bringing on any attempts to solve affordability. It's not looking after the middle class. and it shouldn't be touted as an affordability policy. Go to the provincial level, since I'm on this role of government policy, and to my fellow politicians out there that no disrespect to you. The Ontario Fair Housing Policy. When I look at this, there are some attempts, once again, for affordable housing. I caution everyone, when they speak about affordable housing, they're talking about a different type of housing than affordability for the middle class. I look at one particular type of policy, inclusionary zoning. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I know there's some planning individuals here, people in development, but inclusionary zoning. The province has mandated and come down with a policy where they've authorized the municipality, basically the ability that as a developer, when I come in for a development approval, be it ground-related community or a high-rise, doesn't really matter, that let's say I'm building a 100-unit high-rise, that the municipality can come down and basically say, we're going to allow you to build 100 units, but guess what? 15 of those units have to be delivered at below market. So whatever your price is at market, you got to deliver 15 of those at below market. Maybe we'll give you a little bit of extra density, don't know. And also, we're going to tell you how far below market we're going to deliver it. A lot of the details of this inclusionary zoning are coming out right now, and one of my business partners was just indicating there was more information that just come out recently on this. So basically, they're dictating to the developer that you have to provide below market homes. Well, that needs to be absorbed by somebody. And guess where it's going to be absorbed by? It's going to be absorbed by the other 85 homeowners, new homeowners. If there's a problem in delivering affordable housing to people, or supportive housing to people in our community, in our society, then it's something that should be borne by everyone, not by new home buyers. So I have a bit of an aversion to this policy of what it's really trying to create and what it's really doing. But once again, what it's doing is it's bringing up the cost of the product. So when I look at housing as a continuum, starting off at emergency shelters, moving into transitional housing, supportive housing, subsidized housing, and then that red line, you move into market-driven rentals and housing. That is the proper development of someone moving through the housing continuum that we would like to see in a very robust and vibrant society. What the policies that I've just mentioned bring about is focus on basically the supportive housing, which I'm not against. I'm saying we have to do that. That's my right, or that's my duty of walking on this earth and being called a Canadian, that I need to help out other members of my fellow citizens to have housing and shelter, because it is, to me, one of the bare essentials that we need to provide. But that's, once again, where the policy is driven. I want to look at provincial policies. We've got Greenbelt, Oak Ridges Moraine, we've got growth plans. We've got the Greenbelt that came in 2005, basically took a swath of land in Ontario and called it a Greenbelt. At the time in 2005 when that was created, I can tell you that there was little to no scientific evidence that was ever provided to the development community of how this land was selected. Some of it is actual protected green space, areas that we need to preserve as Ontario, people of Ontario. So I don't disagree with that. But there is a lot of land in this green belt that shouldn't be in it, that was just selected almost with a crayon. Here's the green belt, this is what we're doing. And there's another review of the green belt policy that's coming through now, where they're looking to increase this green belt. I just hope they do a little bit more consultation and a little bit more scientific evidence to make a proper determination of what should be included in the green belt, because this will impact supply most definitely. I want to talk about process. Very simple process to get something approved. You got raw land on the left-hand side, and you're going through various planning at a regional, municipal level, some zoning, all of a sudden you get DPA, and if you don't know what DPA, that's draft plan approval. That's the approval I have to build out a community. And it comes with a certain amount of conditions I have to fulfill in order to really get in the ground and build the community. And from that I can get my subdivision and my community registered, and it allows me to create lots. And then those lots I sell to builders, which they can build homes on. So pretty simple. Should take about, I'm going to say, I put 6 to 8 months, but I'm going to say about an 8-month process to go through this. Theoretically, it's an 8-month process. And, you know, speaking with someone earlier here, the process was a lot easier in 1970, and it may have been around this time frame. But now, it's a little bit more complicated than I've made it seem here. We've got provincial policies, provincial regulation, plans, ROPS, we've got heritage districts, growth management strategies, we've got the region with its planning and development services, with transportation and environmental services on a municipal level. We have their planning staff, urban design, engineering services. On top of that, we have also other organizations that need to have input, that's electrical services. We have Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Natural Resources, which looks after salamanders, butternuts, and barn swallows. Ministry of Tourism, which have to defend the archaeological and historical significance of certain lands, which is a good thing. We have tree conservation, zoning, neighborhood site guidelines, and then we have Conservation Authority, which looks after floodplains, how things are going into the Grand River, fill permits, etc., etc. This is that simplistic process turned around. That's what we have to go through. Once again, theoretically, 6 to 8 months. The process in actuality takes about 7 years. And that's on average. I can tell you it's probably 7 to 20 years to bring a piece of land through the development process. That is the reality of where we are in trying to bring around supply. I thought I'd throw this up. I gave this example in 2016, and I'm always commenting and talking to my planner here, and my VP of Planning, who helped put this together, and I appreciate that, about, can you tell me about the timing of how long it's going to take to get this through? He's going, pick a date. Any date you want, Tony. And I'm going, okay, geez. So in 2016, I gave this example of an actual case, and this is very indicative of what I've been through and other developers within this community. In 2005, we went for a municipal plan amendment. We had to bring it to the Ontario Municipal Board because it wasn't being attended to locally. Then in 2010, and I'm sorry about the dates, in 2010, we got a Schedule B rating to it, which means that our application will be dealt with within 2 years. It gives me some certainty. I'm happy with that. It gives me some certainty that we're going to look at this application for this development. Well, guess what? It never happened in 2 years. It forced us to go to the Ontario Municipal Board as kind of the judiciary group that oversees appeals and process regarding with planning. So time went on. 2015, I received my draft plan approval. It was through the OMB. It was not done locally. We have some pumping station, we have some road, infrastructure that needs to be built. In 2016, I said, don't worry, we're going to have building permit available. That means finished lots, and I can go to the builders and say, go grab a permit and build a home. We're going to have that in 2018. Actually, we're talking 2020 now. So in the course of 2 years, we're off by 2 more years. This is 15 years in the works. And this is not one example that I'm pulling out of obscurity. I have some communities that have taken me 20 plus years to bring to development stage. The other part of the process is we've lost the OMB, and we've gone to these local planning appeal tribunals. The OMB was, for me, the place where either the municipality or the developer had an opportunity to go to a forum where individuals could look unbiasedly to the applications of development and make a decision of what is correct or not correct. That is gone now. It's going to a local tribunal. What that means is it's out of the hands of an independent body. It will come back down to the municipality. This will create a lot of NIMBYism, I'm going to tell you right now, or not in my backyard kind of attitudes. So it'll be very interesting. I feel sorry for our local politicians because they're going to have to make some pretty tough choices when they have taxpayers banging at their door saying, we do not want this development in my backyard. And you have to think about the growth and what